spiritually, are you in touch with your values and your purpose? Why are you here on this earth? Are you living into that? Are you using your gifts? And I do believe strongly that everybody has certain gifts. Right. And so how are you using those gifts for the better of your family, of your society in some kind of way? Because it will bring your stress level down. And are you connected to a higher source, whatever that higher source is for you? We are not the ones, right? We have a limited amount of resources, limited amount of energy. So it's just like your cell phone. You've got to plug it in at night. Well, we've got to plug ourselves in to something that's bigger, higher power than us.
Hey friends, it's Mary, and this is the Mary Jervich Show, a podcast that champions today's working women to gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to up-level your career while strengthening your faith and living your dream life, all in record time. We'll cover topics like career advancement, leadership, personal development, faith, and health and wellness, so you can intentionally create a career in life full of more abundance, joy, and love. Let's get started. Hey friends, welcome on into this episode of the Mary Jervich Show. I am so excited that you are joining us here today. We have such a wonderful guest joining us. She is a certified health coach, a licensed professional counselor, and a certified worksite wellness specialist. And she lives in San Antonio. I love to have other San Antonio women on the show providing value to us. Gina Ramirez loves to practice a holistic approach to wellness. She likes looking at the complete person. That means mind, body, and behavior using what she calls the daily deposit framework. And I'm sure she's going to be sharing more about that with us in this episode, so you want to stay tuned. She specializes in working with professional women who are struggling with work-life balance and all the responsibilities that come with adulting. Her clients recognize health as a primary value, but struggle to reach optimal effectiveness at home or at work. There's always a fire that needs to be put out. That's what she says. It feels like that, right? And I think we can agree. Sometimes it does feel that way. But today, Gina is here with us. Just as she guides her clients, she's going to guide us to have a gentle understanding of integration, creating a beautiful tapestry of lifestyle, exercise, attitude, and nutrition around current life circumstances. Our coaching programs foster a partnership to find the best solution to the client's wellness needs. Gina, we're so excited to have you here today. Welcome on in.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I love what you're doing. I love health and wellness. And I just think that there's so much value in us learning about health. And I know before we started recording today, we were talking a little bit about the menstruation cycles and how those things kind of affect us. And I think we both kind of agreed that there's a lot more that as women we could have or maybe should have learned. But the good news is that we get to learn it now. It's available to us. So we don't have to feel bad about lost time. We can kind of be rooted where we are and know that we can just grow from here.
Exactly. Start where you are. No matter where you are, it's okay.
Yes. All right. So as we kind of kick it off here today, I'd love for you just to share more about your story. What got you into this? Tell us a little bit of your background.
Yeah. So I have two younger kids, or they were younger kids at the time that I made the transition from licensed professional counselor to health coaching. Although I still hold my license, I moved more into the coaching realm because I was in that burned out, stressed out phase. And that's kind of what got me into more health coaching. My hair started to fall out. I fell asleep driving on I-35, which is one of our main highways here in San Antonio. And it was very, very scary, but it all stemmed from having so much on my plate and looking around thinking, why is everybody else look like they're doing it and I can't? Like there must be something wrong with me that I'm unable to keep up. I was gaining weight. I was constantly fatigued. It didn't matter how much sleep I got. It just wasn't working. And everything that I knew to do, because, I was a health-minded person, I was a plant-based eater, everything I knew to do wasn't working. In fact, it was making things actually worse. The way that I was approaching my health was actually making things worse. And I didn't know it. So my hair started to fall out. And having that scare on the highway there was a big wake up call. And that's kind of when I started looking into what is going on with me, looking more at my health and realizing that there's this real connection between what's happening up here, in your mind and what's happening in your physiology. And I'd seen it with clients as well. You eat better, you feel better, you're thinking clearer. There's this connection between the mind, the body, and the behavior that we can't necessarily separate. We really need to talk about the whole person. How can you be well? When we talk wellness and health, I think a lot of people talk health, but I want you to think more of wellness, like well-roundedness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. And I love it because it really does take in the entire person into account. And I think that's sometimes where we have one objective or another objective, and that just starts to pull things apart. And so I love what you were saying, because it's easy for us to just be like, well, we just want to lose 10 pounds and we focus on the weight loss, or, I'm just going to exercise, and we do this exercise program, because the world really is all around us telling us, like, do this thing, do that thing, do this thing. There's fad after fad after fad after fad. And I know you said you were eating plant-based. I don't know if you still eat plant-based or if you eat some other way.
I do, actually. I still eat plant-based, but it was the way I was eating that was not helpful to me. And I was missing key nutrients that there again, I didn't know. So it's, a lot of things we just don't know. We don't know.
Yeah. And I think that in a lot of areas of life, like with health and even with career advancement, we have been so led to believe we're just supposed to know. We should just be able to do these things. Like, right, we're a human being. We should be able to take care of ourselves. We should be able to be well. And the truth is we haven't really learned what that takes. And to think that we would have all that information innately is kind of crazy. I mean, if we really look at how we feel after we eat something, if we really journal, I think we could probably really figure it out. But so much is by these outside influences that come in and say, do this, try that, do this. This is what you're missing. That's what you're missing. And all of these strong opinions, this study, that study. And we just see, eggs are good, eggs are bad, and all of the things. But it leads us to really think like, you know what, especially in today's world, because there's all this information that comes in. And I like social media. I don't think anything is inherently bad, right? Too much of something might be bad, or it may cause us to stray. So there's things for each of us that may not be great, but it's kind of painted this picture, especially with things like Pinterest, right? We can just have it all. We can just kind of do it all. We can have the career, we can have the family, we can, have all the perfect little photos and all of the things. Is it really realistic for women to think that they can have it all?
I think you can have it all, but not all at once. If that makes sense.
I agree 1,000%.
I think that we just don't ask for help when we need it. And part of that, I really feel like it's a prideful thing. As women, we take a lot of pride in the things that we do and how we can manage. We love to multitask, and I'm just being general here, that most of us can do a pretty darn good job of multitasking. And we kind of innate have that in us. That's part of our feminine genius, is what I like to say, that we can do all the things. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. And it doesn't mean that everybody else is doing it. Like I said, I was looking around at all these other working women, who were killing it. They were just doing all the things at work that they needed to be doing, hitting the deadlines, getting those projects done. And their kids were clean. They would go places and their kids looked put together and clean and they had shoes on. But yeah, I think that we just need to kind of take a step back and realize, I can, get someone to come clean my house or do my yard work. Like, where is the time and energy being spent? And do you have any left over for yourself? Because when we come to zero, when we have zero left in the tank, it's just not a good feeling. Not a good feeling.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's so true, because it's not that we can't do everything. We are capable. We can learn new things. We can do new things. I mean, there's so much that, God has given us this incredible mind that can develop and grow, and, our hands, we can learn, but it doesn't really serve us. And so what kind of happened? Because here's what you said. You said that you're looking around. It seems like everybody else has it all together. But then you just kind of alluded to the fact that, like, it was almost like an illusion.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's a total illusion, especially with social media nowadays. We're looking at everybody's highlight reels thinking, oh, they've got it all together and I don't. When in actuality, what do you really know, about that coworker or about that person on Instagram or Pinterest or, wherever you're at on social media? What do you really know about these people? And their personal lives, and how much energy do they give back to themselves? And I think that that's a real issue, that we are not protecting our time and energy as working women.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing you said was about having help, right? Asking for help. And I know it's so ironic because I wasn't even like this executive. I was just at this point where I'm like, hey, I really want to. I was the first employee in this new company. And I was like, I really want to grow in my career. And it was at that point, we had someone to clean our house. We had somebody to do the lawn work. And so my husband was working kind of like a senior level management position. And then I hired a mommy helper. And I don't even think I had my baby at the time. I didn't even have the baby at the time. I had my 3, what I consider my older children now, but they were elementary school age. But just having somebody to help, because there's 3 of them, we're both working full time. It's like, do I need something else from the grocery store? Can this person help me clean my car? Can they organize the craft closet? Like something that I'm the only one that has a brain in this house that works in that way. That I would want it to be that. How can I have somebody else that like duplicate myself in a sense to be able to say, hey, can you do this? Or can you organize the Tupperware chore, whatever it is, something. Can you go through the kids' clothes and pull out the old stuff? But just somebody, hey, I'm running 30 minutes late. Can you be at the house with the kids? Something, just, get dinner started. It wasn't every day, all day, but even like that 10 hours a week, somebody helping me just to keep it all together, or run to the different stores to get the, the special socks for sock day or the hat or whatever it is that we needed, was so incredibly helpful to really allow me to be able to spend time with my family. And I think, so how do we kind of make that shift? Is there a mental shift we need to make there? I know you mentioned like the pride, but is there a shift we need to make with asking for help? And is there kind of a formula? Because, some people are like, well, what should I be spending money on to get help?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's a mental block for a lot of us. It's an objection I hear quite a bit when it comes to spending money, because they don't want to spend money on something that they can do, or, put it back on me, that I can do. I don't want to spend money on something that I should be able to do, that society is telling me that I should do. And that's another huge thing. Like, what are the expectations, right, that people are putting on me? And so I think the mind shift has to be focused around not only time and energy, like how am I feeling? Let me just take a moment, take a breath, and check in with myself here. Do I have the capacity to be doing all the things, right? That's number 1. And number 2 is, who can I have a crucial conversation with at this point? Whether it's my partner, whether it's my parents that maybe live in the same town that can help me, whether it's a mommy, helper. And I'm right there with you. At certain times of your journey, let's say your mom journey, your career journey, your wellness journey, you're going to need different things, right? Whether it's that mommy helper when the kids are younger, whether it's somebody that's coming to clean your house, each phase of your life is going to require different things, but it means having a crucial conversation. So I think those are the 2 elements that, when you talk about mindset shifts, that we need to just bring awareness to, just get curious. We're not going to make any decisions. I think people get hung up on, I can't do that right now, or I can't make that decision right now, or, this is too much, or this is going to be like a lifetime decision. Oh no, not a lifetime decision. We're just in the season that you're in right now. Where could you use some rearranging, and integrating the different parts of your life? Because I don't ascribe to balance. I really don't think that you'll ever be completely balanced in your life. We're always making little micro adjustments to become, integrated with all the things.
Yeah, that's such good advice and such good information, because it is this balancing act that we're playing, and it does shift. It changes from time to time, but we can't see that when we're in these early stages. I know I became an instant mom when I married my husband, and it was like, okay, not a mom. And I was helping with the kids before that, but it was completely different. Now I'm wife and mom, day one going in, and it's this whole different circumstance. And it's not just me anymore. I can't just go get my massage and go see my trainer at the gym and do the things that I could do with my own professional salary. It's this whole other thing of how do we take care of the family? Where does the time go, the finances, and what's really important for the family now? And one of the things I just realized personally was my time with my kids is so valuable and it is so limited. My husband had the main custody of our kids, and then we ended up having full custody within a short period of time after we got married. But it's still like the years just go by so fast. And now having, my youngest is 7, my oldest is 24, it's like I could just see how fast and how much I just want to spend the time with them and have real quality time. Not that we can't clean, not that we can't do things, we can, but it's that picking and choosing of what works and what works for your family at the different stages. Because when my kids were little, they couldn't really help the way they can now. I have older children now. My daughter is amazing. Anytime I need something organized, I need something like decorated, I need something wrapped. She is so good, because she has learned all of the things and she could do it so well. And each child has their own special gift to be able to help with. So managing the house now is not nearly as challenging as it was when they were little. But when they're little, it's like so much is put on you. Mm-hmm. Especially if that's your skill set. So I just like that cycling that you talked about. So where do you see moms, especially working moms, where do they typically struggle?
I think in 3 areas is what I see most. And the first that I'll talk, they're not in any order, but the first that I want to mention is food, like getting healthy food, not only to your kids and your family, but to yourself. We're working full time. If you're not a person who meal preps or doesn't, think ahead, sometimes I feel like with women in different career fields, they're very good at what they do. And that's kind of where their headspace is. But when it comes to, how do I now manage, I'm used to going out to eat for lunch. And, now I've got to be thinking about making these healthy meals. Well, we're running to soccer practice. We're, doing X, Y, and Z after I'm done with work and after school. I don't have time to do the healthy cooking or the meal prepping or, what should I be choosing when I go to the grocery store? So revolving around food is a big one. That's one that I see. Time management is another one that I see. They just are exhausted. For example, they'll come home after a long day, they put the kids to bed and then they go down the scroll hole. They're just getting on social media and zoning out because they're craving that time for themselves. Like, nobody touch me right now. You don't want to be touched because you're too overstimulated. So it's not like you want to spend that time maybe with your partner, but also you want that time for yourself. Like, how do I get some time back? And maybe it's I'm going to binge Netflix or go down the scroll hole, but really those things are not fulfilling. They're not filling you up, refreshing you in any kind of way, putting energy back. They're actually just a distraction. So managing your time and energy is number 2. And then 3 is the planning and organizing of your life, like of the whole totality. How do you know where everybody's supposed to be and where everything is in the house? We know that here, but is it on paper? And how many calendars do you have? Because I live and die by this one. But I also have 2 other calendars, to be honest. I have a paper calendar, I have an Outlook at work, and then I'm tied to this thing, my phone. So that planning and organizing of the whole of your life, of your house, it can be a struggle. Those are the 3 areas I see most.
Okay. So we're struggling with food, we're struggling with scrolling and not really getting that restorative time, and we're struggling with scheduling. I can see that. I mean, in my mom group of friends, I see it. I feel it. I know even this morning, I'm like, I need to get to the store. But really what I need to do before I go to the store is I need to make out the shopping list. And it's fun going back to the store. I did Instacart way before COVID ever happened, but I loved it before. And now it's just like, I like going back to the store. So for this season, I'm back in the store and I just use Instacart when I need something. I'm on vacation. I don't go to the grocery store. They get delivered, or I'm prepping having a party, I need something, or, the day's beyond me and I just need to get something for a recipe, I have it. But so I'm meal prepping, and I can just see how even just these small things make it so much easier, right? If I schedule, hey, this is what I'm going to be eating this week, this is what the family's going to have for meals, then it's easier to keep our food in check. And when we keep our food in check, you were saying before, then it's easier for us to be able to maintain our health, both physically and mentally, whenever we're eating foods that are really nourishing us. So what are some quick tips and some quick wins that someone listening can really get today, whether it's in these areas or in some other areas?
Well, I left you the professional women and the mental load handout that I wanted to gift everybody with. And it has all three areas, quick wins for all three areas that they can begin to do. But one of the tips that I'll give you just right off the bat is buying things at the grocery store that are already prepped for you, like the cut up veggies or like the meat that's already seasoned. So you don't have to do the work if you're not a meal prep person. Personally, I take Sundays and I just block off because that's my grocery day. And as soon as I'm done unloading groceries, I am like on it with the meal prepping for the week, because I know that if it's done, I don't have to think about it, right? So I know what we're going to have for dinners for the week. And I know what my lunch is going to look like for the week, because I'm not a person who likes to eat out a lot. So, that just helps my stress level to come down. So whatever is going to work for you, I think with the food piece, that's huge, is just to have some forethought into what do I want to prepare, make the list out, even though nobody likes to make the list. And, getting your groceries either delivered or going to pick them up. Our grocery store here in Texas is the big H-E-B. And so I love driving up and having them load my groceries. It's just the best thing that saves me, again, time and energy. So that is huge, I think, one of the biggest things.
Yeah, and impulse buying. So it's grocery delivery, definitely. Even though it's more expensive, I'm just like, man, just having it delivered. I don't have any impulse buys because I'm literally buying. There's always impulse buys. It happens every time. But it's fun to go back into the store after years. I'm like, oh my gosh, all this stuff exists. I never even knew. Let me look around a little.
And when it comes to having healthier meals, again, you're not choosing the impulse buy of those brownies that look so yummy as you're passing by the end cap, right? No, you're just getting what's on your list, which ends up being a healthier fridge, a healthier pantry. So absolutely.
Okay. And then what is one thing that we can do for our time management?
I think is to rearrange like your day, giving yourself some sacred space, what I like to call sacred space, so that you don't end up going down that scroll hole that's unscheduled. So if you want to schedule distracted time, schedule it in, like for real. I know it sounds really silly to schedule things like that, but then you have that designated time that okay, I'm not wasting it. Because here's what I see a lot of times is that we then feel guilty, right? Like, oh, I could have been doing, this pile of laundry. It didn't get done because I've been sitting here watching Netflix. Because your body needed to rest. But if I schedule in that time, then I'm not wasting it, quote unquote, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. So what I hear you saying is schedule in the time. And I want to kind of touch on both things here, because I think scheduling is one of the things. And then we have like not getting that self-care time for actual self-care. It's kind of for the scrolling or the Netflix and things like that. And, as moms, we have a lot of mom guilt. We can have guilt going to work. We can have guilt being at home and not working or doing the things we need to do. And I know for some of us, I know for me personally, it was very, very hard. I had a hard time figuring out how to relax, how to just sit, how to be fully engaged, enjoy the moment in what I was doing, and actually allow myself to relax. I had to learn that. It wasn't a skill that I possessed. I would just be up and doing everything. And everyone's like, oh, my husband's like, well, I just want you to sit on the couch next to me. Like, you just do that? Like, that would be really meaningful quality time to me. We don't even have to say anything. Just, would you sit here? But I didn't really understand that. So you're saying schedule like some spontaneous time. So if you want to just watch Netflix or you want to scroll, that's fine. Or also schedule some self-care time.
Yeah. And schedule that time with your partner. Like that should be scheduled in, because that's a non-negotiable, right? That's a big rock So we really have to do, again, some self-reflection on what are the big rocks that are important to me? Where are my values and priorities? And if my kids and my partner I'm saying is like number one on my list, well, then you better schedule it, because what's not scheduled, you're just wishing might happen, right? Because most people live and die by their calendar. Like, things that are on the calendar, we know have to get done, right? So manage your calendar and let everybody see it. So in our house, we have color codes for our family calendar, and it's electronic. Everybody can see it. Everybody's got a color, so that there's no question on who's doing what or when they're doing what. It's all right there in the calendar.
Yeah, I love that. We talked about this on a recent episode when we were talking about containers and how our schedule is actually a container, and we need to see it as such. A container is not something that you just fill to its over full and then get another one. You can't get another hour in your day. There's are only so many hours, but also being able to use this almost as a boundary to say, okay, I only have X amount of time. So when I'm trying to, because I think there's two extremes, right? I think there's the extreme of I'm not having enough productivity, perhaps I'm not getting enough things done. And then there's the other person that's like, bring it all on. I can do it all. Give me more. And so really figuring out, how do we live a balanced life? How do we effectively say no to things, because we know that it's just not going to be in the best interest of our well-being and of our family's well-being. And we can rest in just saying like, yes, it's full. And it could even be having it, right? So I think maybe some of the scheduling has to do with boundaries and setting up boundaries that really work for your family. It could even be like, we only do one birthday on a weekend, or we'll only do, 2 if it's a family member, but something, or, we only prioritize these friends things like that. How can we really do that? Because it feels like there's always, okay, this is what my schedule looks like coming up. We have a free night tonight, so I'm going to get grocery shopping done. Then we have baseball tomorrow, doubleheader and church on Sunday for football. Monday, we have baseball practice. This is all on top of my husband working, me working. Tuesday, my daughter has her pop show at the high school. Wednesday, we have a baseball game. Thursday, we'll have baseball practice. Friday, we have a birthday party. The next Saturday, we have a baseball game and a birthday party. Sunday, we have a birthday party and church. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, right? Like, so that week is abnormally busy for us. I mean, it's the end of the school year, but if somebody's schedule looks like that all the time, I feel like that could be a little overwhelming.
It could be a problem. What I find is that we hardly ever have to choose between a good or a bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, the choices that we make, it's like they're all good. Yes, I want my kids in dance and in baseball and in football. And yes, I want them to do after school robotics. And, you're thinking this is going to be so great for them and, their future. And me too. Like, I need to get involved in, the ladies group at church, or, what I need to get involved in this book club at work that everybody's into. Everything sounds good. There's all these goods, and they are good. But again, it goes back to number one, what are the priorities of you and your family? And number two, what does your time and energy look like? Some people have more capacity, like you were saying, bring it on. They love to be in that fast pace, whereas other people just don't have the capacity, and it's just not innately in them. So they kind of want to back off a little bit. And you just have to decide where the happy medium is for you. We are at the end of the school year right now. So we're recording this in May. It's the end of the school year for us anyway. So I like to call this time strategic imbalance. I'm going to strategically, meaning I'm choosing, right? There are times in our life where we're going to have to choose the imbalance because it's just a short period of time. But on the daily, I know that that's not really my life. When my kids were little, we sat down with them and said, listen, all these things look good, but you're allowed to choose one, because I can't run you to a million different, I only have 2 kids. I don't know how you're doing it, but I can't run you to every single thing. I'm only one person, So at that time we did also have to get a little mommy helper that was also playing taxi and driving little kids around because I didn't have the capacity for it. But I also knew that it was a crucial conversation. We had a family meeting to say, here's what we're going to take on.
Yeah. And I love that. And I think that's where it's like, we have to just figure out what works for us. When do you really thrive? Because one thing that that God has really spoken into me is when we serve our families, we are serving him. That is a service to serve our families. And because I always used to think, okay, I've got to volunteer at the church. And I know we're not saved by works, we're saved by grace, but I still, I wanted to give back to God. And he just kept telling me, like, make sure your home is in order. Make sure your home is in order. Make sure your home is in order. Because as the Christian mom, I am the model for the family of what it looks like to be this Christian. And this is very important because if I'm a follower of Jesus, then what am I modeling? Am I modeling leaving my family all the time to go and serve others where my family could maybe feel neglected? Am I choosing to overwork and overcommit outside the home to where the family, I have to miss these important family things? Because at the end of the day, the kids they might not outwardly say they have a problem with it, but they're not going to understand it. And so that's what he's really just showed me is like, you need to be there because you are the only one that can be there. And there will be other times. And that's even like I'm part of the prayer team at Community Bible Church where I go to church at. And when I first was part of this thing, I was like, okay, I've got to volunteer every weekend. I got to volunteer every weekend. And they're like, okay, you can be part of the altar team. I'm like, okay. So now I'm like altar team and this, and I've got a teenager and it's like trying to get a teenager up to get to church is like early, like not just get there, but get there early now. And then we have to stay late every time. It was becoming a little bit stressful for the family. And it's like, okay, it's okay. I can volunteer once a month. I can volunteer twice a month because that's the season of life that I'm in right now. There will be other seasons of my life where I'll have more that I can give, but just always making sure that we're giving to God, giving to our spouse, giving to ourselves, giving to our kids before we start giving to everybody else outside of the community with our schedules. So you keep mentioning crucial conversations, and help us to understand exactly what you mean. I think you might have read one of my favorite books, but I'd love to hear what you mean by crucial conversations, and just to help us to understand, like, what does it look like to have a crucial conversation? Because, some women listening right now may be feeling like, yeah, this is all well and good, but you don't know my husband.
I feel that. Yes, I understand. I really feel like if we're going to have a partnership, right, in this little family unit, whatever your family unit looks like, if you're going to have a partnership, then we need to be honest with how we feel about the current situation. And if we're always up here with the surface level stuff because we're just putting fires out and we're just running kids to different things, and we're never going deep down and creating a really connected relationship, And so a crucial conversation is about that. It's about how can we have this connection that's a deep connection. We're forming a life together, and I want to have this deep connection with you, which means I'm going to be honest with you about how I feel about these things. So maybe it means taking a step back and really examining for myself, what is it that I need in this season of life that I'm in, just like you said, and being able to talk about that's really what I mean. But it's something that's scheduled. It's not like, hey, as you're walking out the door, I need to talk to you about something. Oh, no. It's not right before bed. Hey, I need to talk to you about something. I'm really upset about X, Y, and Z. Oh, no. This is, let's get it on the calendar. And it's a continuous, that we're having this continuous open dialogue. Not I'm here to complain. It's really about a continuous open dialogue. We have family meeting usually on Sundays, because that's when we can all sit down together and have a meal. And during that time, we're talking about what's coming up, what our schedule is going to look like, what people's, plans are. What's your heart's desire? Are you going for a goal? This could be a real heart-to-heart conversation. Is that answering your question?
Yeah, I think that's so important, because what you just said, it's one of these scheduled conversations. It's not just, a run by, a drive by. And that's the exact same thing I teach whenever we're talking about career advancement. It's actually like, set time aside for a meeting. Don't just drop in, hey, do you have 5? No, that's not the time that this kind of conversation needs. And, I just want to empower women to have these conversations. I know I've had a lot of crucial conversations, and they're hard. It's sometimes hard to share something with somebody if you're feeling a certain way. But I think the main thing is just to remember that you want the best for them and for yourself. Like, so you're not trying to hurt them by advocating for yourself. And so just keeping that at the forefront and letting them know, what you want for them,
for the family and for yourself, because it is hard. There was a period of time where I was cooking 3 meals a night because I ate a certain way. And I ended up having a gluten allergy. I found out after working at a wellness center. And then my kids would eat kid food. And then I would make my husband a meal. And so I was literally making 3 meals. And I'm like, I remember the conversation. I just sat down my husband and I'm like, we have to change something. I cannot go on for the rest of my life making 3 meals a night. This is crazy. Like, and I love to cook. I was a restaurant major, so cooking is easy for me. I can cook quickly. I can cook meals. Like, recipes don't scare me. Like, new foods don't scare me. But I was having 2 issues, actually. The first issue was just, I don't want to cook 3 meals, right? Like, that's a lot of meals to have to cook. The other issue I had is now that I was working in wellness, I realized how unnutritional a lot of these kids' foods are. And I'm like, I cannot cook this food. Like, physically, I was having such a hard time cooking this food and serving it to my kids because I'm like, this is not good. Here you go. But I'm their provider. I'm the caretaker. I'm the meal maker. And so what are they doing? They're eating the food that I give them. And I know that. And so with that transition, I know, talking to my husband, he's like, okay, we'll make changes. And I just told him, I said, I need you to be the leader in this. Like, I can't be the one that says, hey, we have to try new foods. I need you to try new foods. I need you to encourage the kids, because here I am at this point. I mean, they always called me mom. I've never heard, you're not my mom. They treat me just like the, I am the mom in this home. So it's never like I was this stepmom. We've never seen it that way. But at the same time, like, he was the dad. He needed to do this for the family. And because he did that, it was slow, but we were able to make changes over time. And now I can make 1 meal, and I know which foods they really, because they're allowed to not like something or like something. And even, I just kind of figured out, okay, well, if I could use grass-fed butter in this, and just make stuff as healthy as I could. So even if they wanted to eat something that was quote unquote unhealthy, how can I just make it as healthy as possible? Could I buy the organic? Could I buy the, full fat version? Could I buy whatever I was learning, the grass-fed version, the wild caught? How could I just make this even healthier or have a healthy component? And that really, it was such a crucial conversation, but I don't even know, like, where would we be if I was making 3 meals a night? Like, I don't even know. I just don't, my kids like enjoy eating more foods now.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of cool when I make out the menu, they'll actually take a look at it and they'll be like, oh, okay, what's this? And have we had that one before? And so it's kind of this unique thing.
I think
they're making their favorites, but just not feeding it every day. And now they don't even, like, my son didn't eat at McDonald's. He's 7. He didn't eat there till about 5 months ago when we went to get a McFlurry because we were getting ice cream after baseball and it was the only ice cream place. So he never ate there. And
that's great.
Yeah, we don't eat ramen and Kraft macaroni and cheese anymore. Right. And like it just changed, but it did take that crucial conversation. Without that, we would still be eating plain pasta and chicken tenders.
And I think what happens most often is that we get so frustrated, right? Like, why don't they know this already? Why am I having to have a crucial conversation with them? They should read my mind. Like, can't they see that I'm upset and that I'm overworked and blah, blah, blah. And so we end up voicing it in a way that's not heard, whether it's that we're, yelling or that we're overly upset and it comes across in a way that is not heard. So we want to have this scheduled continuously. And the more that you do it, the easier it becomes.
Yeah. So I think as women, we have to advocate for what we need, both at work and at home. We have to tell people what it is we need, because when we don't share it, they don't know. They don't see the work. They don't see that you need help. It was funny. Oh my gosh, I'll share this one last story before we move on. We were at baseball the other day. My husband helps coach, and I go to the practices because our son is 7, and I'm just like, it's just going so fast. It will be over before we know it. And so with such a large age gap, like I get to go to his practice. And the other day he's like, you should just coach. And I was like, I could help coach. And all the moms around me, they're like, well, if she has to coach, then, because he was like, oh yeah, you could coach and I'll sit over here and talk to the mom. She's like, well, you could do that, but you also have to make the posters for the kids' gifts. You're also going to have to set up all the potlucks throughout the year. You're also going to have to coordinate and make sure you have messages so all the moms know where they're going. And you're going to have to make all the jackets, because I made all the boys' jackets on the cricket maker. So you got to make all the team jackets. And he was like,
never mind.
Okay. But it never even occurred to him. He just sees me sitting there. He's like, oh, she just gets to sit there while I practice.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I'm a little vocal. I used to play softball, so I have some things to say when he's coaching. But I have some opinions about coaching in baseball. Let's just say that. But it's just unique because I think the whole point just being they don't always see, even though they do appreciate in the moment, they don't always remember or see the time, energy, or effort it takes to do all of these things. And so if we do need help, we just need to say it, even if it's for a meal or something else. It's because we do need breaks.
Absolutely.
We need them.
And the more that you're having those crucial conversations, if they are, scheduled in, and if it is that family meeting time, they do become aware, right? Because you're sharing these things. And so it does become enlightening, I think, for the entire family to know that you're doing all of these things. You're making the jackets and organizing the things and doing it all that is behind the scenes that people don't know about. So again, I just really feel like that is a huge part of advocating for yourself, is having those conversations, but making it a regular occurrence so that it feels natural and it's just part of the rhythm of your own family dynamic.
Yeah, I love that. And what also came up when you said that is, when we share, when we're willing to have these crucial conversations, when we're willing to say, hey, here's what I need, I think it opens up the door for our husbands and our kids to also say, hey, here's what I need. Here's what I want. Here's what I like. Because we're modeling that for them.
Exactly.
We're not modeling this passive aggressive anger or this resentment or this back talk or all of these things that are really destructive. We know God tells us, life is in the tongue. And so life or death. And we really have such powerful tool here that we can be using, and we can use it for good to model what it is we want others to do. And I think communication, right? Would you speak into that a little bit? Like how important communication is to our health?
Absolutely. It is. Yes. Absolutely. It's huge. And not being able to voice your opinion or feel like somebody is holding you down in some way. The three ways that we get into conflict is, number one, we care. Otherwise, there would be no conflict at all. Number two, we feel diminished in some way, like somebody's holding us down, right? These are ways that we get into conflict. And the third way is our expectations. Our expectations are not being met. And so, if you think about the last conflict that you had, it was probably a combination of I cared about something. I felt like somebody was, diminishing me in some way, or my expectations were not being met. Some combination of that was probably at play there. And when we're having these conversations and making it something that is just a normal part of this is what we do every week, it just becomes normalized and people begin to open up and there isn't as much conflict. Lo and behold, and we're connecting with each other, right? We're forming bonds that are deeper than just, did you pick up this? Can you go run to the grocery store? I forgot the milk. We're really coming into something that's a little bit more substantial in our relationships with our kids, with our partners. So absolutely, it does something to the health. Absolutely does.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so Gina, I want you to tell us more about the daily deposit framework that you have, because I know that you're sharing some stuff with them. You have some free gifts. We're going to put links to that in your show notes, so be sure to check that out and connect with Gina. We'll get you the information to do that as well. But can you tell us more about this framework that you've developed?
So I like to think of wellness as a banking system, and just like your bank where you keep your money, you usually have a checking account and a savings account. And sometimes when the checking account gets low, maybe the bills are due, not enough money in there, we transfer, right? We borrow from one account to the other account. We do this. This is our part of our banking system. What I want people to realize is that we do this in our life as well. And I like to think of our life as having 5 accounts. One is mental, physical, social, spiritual, and career. So those are the 5 life accounts. And just like the banking system, we borrow. So for example, if I am really tired, part of my physical account is sleep. Am I sleeping well? That's part of the physical account. Under my social account is my relationship. So maybe I'm really tired one night and my husband comes home from work and says, oh, I'd really like to spend some time together. This movie just came out on Netflix. Let's sit down and watch a movie together. And in my mind, I don't say it, but in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm exhausted, so tired. Like, I last thing I want to do is watch a movie. But I know that my social account is low. I need to put deposits in there because he needs some time. So I borrow from my sleep underneath the physical to the social, right? But what does that do in the long run? If I'm looking at it long term, I'm not building interest in my physical account. In fact, I'm getting depleted because the next day, if I stay up late, the next day I know that I'm going to be cranky, right? Because I didn't get the sleep. Mm-hmm. My mental clarity is going to be off. My hunger hormones are going to be off. So I'm going to be eating more than I need to be eating. So there's these downstream effects that we're not really thinking through. So stress takes withdrawals from every single account. We need to be putting daily deposits in so that we don't become bankrupt, so that when we do borrow, because it will happen just like life, we'll need to borrow. But when we borrow, we're not depleted.
Yeah, I like the way that you explain that, because that's the exact thing that happens. And it's like there becomes a point where there's nothing else you can withdraw, but we try. And that's like when we're in burnout mode and everything just fizzles. Or I know I don't get these anymore, praise God, but like just these outbursts of anger. Like I remember there was this, I talk about this in my book. There's this one specific time my son was just a baby and my husband's like, okay, I'm going to take the girls to work or to school today, leaving me with my son to take to school. And because we had 4 kids at 4 different places at this point in time. And so he was taking 2 and I was going to take 2. And it was like, okay, well, at this moment, I just like blew, like I couldn't even use my words. It was just this rage of anger. And it's like how you never want to be presented, because here my little baby in diapers is now crying because mommy is flamed, because I'm like, you gotta get dressed. We gotta go now. Like, because I already knew his lunch wasn't packed. He wasn't dressed. It takes like 5 minutes. He like hated getting in his car seat. And it was a Monday morning and I had to be at a meeting for 9:00. And it was like in that moment, I guess I was so depleted. I was burnt out. I wasn't doing any of the things I do now at that time. I just was like just in survival mode and so depleted that I engulf in flames. And now I feel terrible. I just scared all of my kids. My husband is angry and I solved nothing, right? And all I simply had to say was, thanks, sweetheart. That's really great. You could take the girls, but I really need you to take the baby because I have my 9:00 meeting. Instead of like just expecting he should remember I have this meeting or like that I can't do it. But I just, in that moment, I couldn't express it. I think that has a lot to do with, being at that negative balance. And so how do we stay more balanced? How do we get those deposits? I know we talked about the food a little bit. We talked about the schedule. We talked about some of these different things, but are there any kind of like markers that indicate like, hey, you're going too far? Or is there anything you're like, hey, on a daily basis, try to do these things, or a weekly basis? Mm-hmm. How can we stay more balanced?
Yeah, I don't want anybody to get bankrupt. That is what I don't want to see. And we can, think about it as compound interest too, because just like your bank, when you have money in there, it grows, right? It's the same with this banking your wellness, bank your health. When you are putting daily deposits in, it's going to grow. And so that you have reserve in there, your capacity for stress grows, your resiliency grows. And that's what we want to see. Well, I like to think of this as taking each individual account and thinking about how, and you're probably already doing this, right? So I don't want to add stress to anybody, or I don't want people to think, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. It's not really overwhelming because we're talking about tiny little choices that we're making every single day. For example, in that mental life account, how are you giving yourself a brain break every day? A lot of us are connected to our screens or our computer, or our phone. We're just constantly stimulated, whether it's auditory or visual, we're just stimulated. So how can you get a sacred space for yourself where you can have quiet time? Maybe that's your prayer time in the morning. Maybe you're meditating. Whatever it is for you, find a sacred space. Maybe you're doing a gratitude journal. That's another way that people put in daily deposits into that mental life account. And under physical, are you moving your body? Are you eating well? Are you sleeping? All of those things count. When we're not doing one of the life accounts well, every one of them will suffer. just like my example with staying up too late. Under the social life account, do you have close relationships? Are you having those crucial conversations? Are you volunteering? Because believe it or not, I know we start with our inner circle, right? If you think of it as 3 concentric circles and that inner circle is your family, yes, start with the family. I feel like that's absolutely number one. The next circle outside of the family is your work environment, your career, the people that you spend a lot of time with. And then beyond that is your community. How are you giving back? Maybe it's monetary, maybe it's your time, but are you contributing in any sort of way? And I mean that in each circle, right? So how are you putting daily deposits there? Are you spending the time with your partner that your partner needs? A relationship, a marriage needs certain things. And so give it what it needs and it will thrive. But spiritually, are you in touch with your values and your purpose? Why are you here on this earth? Are you living into that? Are you using your gifts? And I do believe strongly that everybody has certain gifts, right? And so how are you using those gifts for the better of your family, of your society in some kind of way? Because it will bring your stress level down. And are you connected to a higher source, whatever that higher source is for you? We are not the ones, right? We have a limited amount of resources, limited amount of energy. So it's just like your cell phone. You've got to plug it in at night. Well, we've got to plug ourselves in to something that's bigger, higher power than us. And then career, how are you advancing? Where are you going? What do you want out of this? Are you able to kind of answer those questions? And are you moving forward? Because for me, there's not standing still. No one is ever standing still in their health, in their thought process. You're either moving towards healthy or you're moving away from healthy, but you're not standing still.
Yeah. 100%. Love all of that. Thank you for just giving us so many little insights, because that's the thing. We have to be taking care of these things on the regular. And like you said, all of the areas, we can't just pour all into this one area and then neglect another area, because it's got to be this balance. And I guess this is what was coming up as you were saying that is it's not a daily balance necessarily. This could be over a week, a month. So it's not that each day you have to give to all of these areas, but it's just really being intentional with your time, which goes back to the schedule to say, okay, what is valuable to me? Where do I want to put my time? How do I make sure the most important things get done so that I can stay balanced, so I can make sure I'm moving, so I can make sure I'm eating healthy? And what I hear you saying is make these things your priority. Don't make the other things in life the excuse of why you can't thrive. Because when we have our health, then we're going to feel, and that health is, like you said, it's not just one dimensional, but multidimensional. Then we can really feel at peace, because we don't feel overdrawn in any areas of our lives. We really feel that we have a fulfilling life, but with our family, with our community, with our career. We have health that's not failing us, so we can actually enjoy all of these things. Because that's what we see sometimes too, is people may have all these things, but they don't have their health. And when you have that, it's really sad, because you work so hard for all of these things, and to not even be able to enjoy them is pretty sad. So it's thinking about that. And when you said about your schedule, because I started scheduling, I've used a paper calendar for a long time, but really being intentional with my schedule probably 10-ish years ago now. And I remember coming home and telling my husband, okay, we have to put date nights on the schedule. And he was like, you are not putting me on a schedule. Like, he was so against it. I used to have like reminders in my phone, like text your husband. He saw it. He got so mad. And it's like, because it feels so rigid, right? But I think the mindset, the way I understood it was, I'm not doing this because I would forget. I'm not forgetting you. But at the same time, I don't want my calendar to get so full that I don't have space for the things that are so meaningful. Because if we're not careful, we can overload ourselves with things and things to do, to where, we don't find the time, or we don't make the time because we don't make it a priority. And I think when you put it on your calendar, that is saying, this is a priority to me. You're a priority to me. It's not that I need this to not forget you, but I want to make sure that when we do get that third birthday invite, when we do get that, that next schedule, that next thing, that we say, okay, well, this doesn't fit. But if we don't have those crucial things on the schedule that put the deposits in our bank account, that allow us to live the life that we actually desire and dream to live out. If you want to have a thriving marriage, you have to be intentional. You can't just wing it. It doesn't usually work that way, even if it's small things you're intentional with. But I'm just seeing this from such a different viewpoint, and an even deeper viewpoint of how the schedule really gives you the life that you want, and make sure that this time is there and you have the time and the energy to really live into what you want in your life. And so it's good. And, earlier you said about your husband and not having that deposit and how you were going to have to steal from it because he wanted to watch a movie. And I was just thinking, I'm like, yeah, I mean, my husband and I, we do have times. I'm like, because years ago, I'm like, we're going to have times that we're going to have for each other. And, we can have other times than this, but these are the times that are for us. And I think it's been phenomenal because at least a couple times a week, we don't have to go anywhere, but these are us times. And these are times that he knows he's going to get me those times. And I think it's like, it's easier to make sure we're set up. It's easier to make sure the kids are in bed. Like if I go in to take a bath, do whatever, it's like, you need to help with whatever else is going on if we're going to have us time today. But because we've set that, we've always had us time. And it feels rare, but when you see the statistics, it's like, it's crazy how little couples either spend time together or make intimate time for each other.
Yeah, it actually gives
less than once per week, and it's just crazy to me because it's like, how is this like? Most guys, how do they want this? I know as a woman, I could go with a lot less, but the guys, I'm like, I feel like this is something, as their wives, this is something that they get from us. Like this, God tells us to give these things to them. And so I just feel like it's super important what you're saying is to just kind of schedule it. So if people are having hesitancy to scheduling, how can they get started with that?
I think that thought about flexibility, because that's what we really want, right? We want flexibility. We want to be able to do what we want when we want instead of having our life dictated to us. And when we don't schedule, which is so opposite, right? It's opposite of what you think, kind of like you were saying. Your husband's like, why are you scheduling that? Why are you scheduling a text message to me? Don't schedule that because it's not spontaneous, right? You hear that a lot. It's not spontaneous. When in all actuality, when you put boundaries around your time, it actually gives you flexibility to be able to do what you want to do with it instead of everybody else dictating, what you do when you do it. So I think it's that little mindset shift of, I'm taking agency over my life instead of saying this is happening to me. No, I get to decide what I'm going to do at this point.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So we've talked a lot about many, many different strategies today, so many different things. There might be some listeners today that are like, okay, Gina, I hear you. Like, I hear you. This all sounds great. Like, I'd love to meal prep. I'd love to do all this stuff. But let me just be honest with you. I am a hot mess. Like, I cannot possibly tackle all of this. If somebody is feeling like that today, what is the one area that they should start with first?
Well, when we talk about life accounts, I gave you 5, the mental, physical, social, spiritual, and career. And I want people to look at those 5, spend a little self-reflection time and rate yourself 1 to 5 on each life account. If you're 3 or below, take a little peek at that one. Maybe all of them are 3 or below. That could be the place that I feel like people get the most bang for their buck is in the physical life account, and most particularly sleep. So if you can manage to get better quality of sleep, then everything starts to shift. The mental becomes a little clearer, right? The physical, those hunger hormones become balanced. The brain feels a lot better. Socially, you're able to be more present with people instead of saying, oh, mommy can't read you a book. I'm exhausted, right? No. You're not going to be exhausted anymore. So you're going to have time for that social life account. And spiritually and your career too, I feel like benefit when you have more energy to give. And it's just a vicious cycle, especially when people say, well, I'm so exhausted, I don't have the energy to work out. I don't have the energy to put toward meal prep. I don't have the energy to give to my partner. I'm too tired for any of that or my kids. So I say start with sleep if at all possible.
Okay, so we're starting with sleep. We're like, we hear you. They're all depleted. We're going to start with sleep. What are some quick tips people can implement right now to get better sleep?
Yeah, well, the research will say 7 to 9 hours is a good place to start. I know people are like, what? 7 to 9 hours? I'm good if I get 5 hours of sleep. I know, I was right there with you. So if you can't focus on the time or don't want to focus on the time, I want you to focus on what are you doing leading up to when you actually get into your bed. So get rid of the screens, the blue light. And I don't necessarily mean turn it off, although I would like you to turn it off about 45 minutes before you get into your bed. No blue light at all. But if you have the blue blocking glasses, I think they work fantastic. Use that. And then 45 minutes before you actually get into bed, no more blue light. Maybe you're reading from an actual book. That would be startling, but I love to hold a real book in my hand. And I think that also helps to kind of slow your brain down, turn down the temperature of your room, give it a nice 65, 68 degrees. We know that when the body temperature comes down, it helps with the melatonin production. And as the sun goes down, interestingly enough, also a trigger for the brain, with the melatonin, which is going to help you sleep better. So no bright lights. We often in our house switch to lamps when the sun goes down so that in the house there's no, bright overhead. So all the little things that you do, have a bedtime routine. Your sleep hygiene really does matter. So maybe you're taking an Epsom salt bath with lavender or spraying your pillow with lavender. These kinds of things will help get you into a better space to calm the body, get into that sleepy mode.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So many things that we can do, but they do make a huge difference. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Gina. I just want to ask you, is there anything that you wish that I would have asked you that you really want to share with the listeners today?
I really think that being in touch with your mental load is important because I talked a little bit, about this idea of feminine genius. And I feel like women have a unique ability to be in touch with or recognize the needs of the people in the room. And mental load is more than just about what we do, all the doing, the laundry, the dishes, the working outside the home, the physical projects that we do. It's a lot of what's going on up here between our ears mentally. The fact that we're anticipating the needs of other people in the room and we're trying to fulfill those needs, those options. What are the options? Especially when it comes to our kids and our partner, I feel like we do this quite a lot. And deciding on which options are going to fit those needs, those particular needs. And then we're checking back to make sure that did those options get, were they the right option for them? How are they feeling? Did this work? Did this not work? All of this contributing to our already heavy mental load. So I just wanted to kind of get that out there that it's a real thing. And I feel like for career women, oftentimes we ignore that part of what we're doing because it's not a doing part. It's more of what's going on in our thought process.
Yeah, that's so good. So good. Gina, who would you say has been the most influential woman mentor in your life?
I had a really fantastic supervisor when I started to come back into the workforce after years of doing part-time work when my kids were younger. That really mentored me well. And so I feel like she's definitely one that I still keep in touch with, still ask, questions about life in general and about my career advancement and just kind of places that I want to take things. And so, yeah. Just somebody who is right there with me, kind of takes your hand and says, yeah, let me guide you this way.
She sounds wonderful. Thank you for sharing and honoring her with that here today. So I know many of the listeners are going to want to be able to get in touch with you. Do you want to tell them how they can do that? And then once again, where they can go to get that freebie that you were offering?
Yes, you can head on over to my website, wellnesswithgina.com, and it's right there as a pop-up. You can catch that freebie there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Gina, for joining us here today. Thank you for all of the valuable information to help us really understand how we can make better deposits into our daily lives, into the lives of others, so we can really serve in the way God has called us to. So we appreciate you being here today. Listeners, we never take it for granted that you're here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for continuing to rate and review the show. And thank you for sharing. You guys continue to share at such high rates, and I could not be more grateful for you. Until we meet again in the next episode of the Mary Jervich Show, I just want to remind you that you're only one plan away from your next promotion. And God, He's not done with you.
Hey friend, thank you for listening today. Be sure to join us next week for another great episode. If you receive value from today's show, I'd appreciate it if you would leave us a 5-star review to help others learn about the show. And if you're ready to fast track your career and increase your income, impact, and joy, then head on over to maryjervich.com and check out the masterclass that teaches you how you can advance too. I'd love to hear from you. You can connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. This and so much more can be found in the show notes. I look forward to seeing you soon.